Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, August 9th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 22 days. Yes, just 3 weeks and 1 day away. The game against Michigan in 113 days. Got a chance to check out Ohio State football practice on Thursday. I got to watch the whole thing. Fourth time this fall we've gotten a chance to do that. There's a lot to see, a lot to take note of during that practice, and also a lot to learn after the practice as well, where we got a chance to talk to Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. On today's show, you're going to be hearing directly from Day about a variety of topics, including, yes, everyone's favorite topic this time of year, who is going to be the Ohio State starting quarterback. I think we may have gotten a little bit of a hint at that answer during practice on Thursday when, boy, it seemed like Will Howard was taking an awful lot of snaps with the ones on offense. So is Ryan Day officially ready to announce Will Howard as the guy, as Ohio State's starting quarterback for 2024?
Yeah, we've been mixing it up a little bit, but you're starting to see he and Devin get a little bit more lion's share of the reps with the ones. I will say that he's taken command of the huddle at the line of scrimmage. I think he's much more confident out there. No decisions have been made. We're gonna probably scrimmage a little bit on Saturday. By then we'll take an evaluation and kind of see where we're at. But both guys are getting reps with the ones. But I will say that Will really has taken some strides here in the last couple practices, taking control of the offense, making plays on third down. Again, hasn't won the job, but we have seen some positive play there.
All right, so not quite ready to crown Will Howard as the starter just yet. But when you look at Will Howard's game, what is it about that? What is it that Will Howard brings to the Buckeyes that Ryan Day really likes?
This preseason, you've noticed a total command of the offense. He's put some work in, I think, this summer, not only on his body. And by the way, I think it was 2% body fat that he changed, and so that part was big, but also just understanding of the offense. He's worked on his throwing mechanics. But if you just said, give me the one thing that looks different this preseason, it's his command of the offense, the way that he's making decisions, and his movement.
Quarterback not the only spot around the field where the depth chart is still getting sorted out a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about those tight ends. Feels like G. Scott and Will Kazmarek have sort of separated themselves at the top of the depth chart there at tight end. So there's also other talented guys in that room. Guys like Jelani Thurman, for example. He's been incredibly talented, incredibly athletic player. Someone people have been very excited about since the day he stepped foot on campus. So what does Jelani Thurman need to do to get up there near the top of that tight end depth chart as well? This is one of the more honest and direct answers you're going to hear from a coach. So take a listen.
Yeah, that's a great question. Jelani has the talent. You've heard me say this before, but he has the talent, and you can watch, a 5 to 10 play cut up and be very, very impressed. But he needs to be consistent. It's all the no talent issues with him. It's the focus. He made some plays, but then there were some plays that we got to make that weren't. And so I love the way he competes. I love his approach. I love his attitude. But in order to play tight end, you have to do a lot of job description. So you really got to be on it every play. And all it takes is one bad play, and that can ruin a whole drive at tight end. So we say that you have to run routes like a receiver. You have to block like an offensive lineman. You have to protect like a running back, and you have to know all of them. So after, I would say, the quarterback, the tight ends are probably asked to do the most things. So, we try to do the best we can and keep it simple, but the reality of it is they're asked to do a lot. So he needs to continue to work in the meeting rooms to make sure that when he gets on that field, he knows exactly what he's doing. Because, we see a huge ceiling in him. He's made strides. He's had a good first couple weeks of camp, but we need him to come on in that area and just show more consistency. If he can, he'll play for us this season.
There are a whole lot of things different about college football this fall, 12-team playoff, all that fun stuff, conference realignment. Here's a little more subtle one. All the players at Ohio State football practices are wearing pads on top of their helmets during practice. That's something we saw a little bit from certain guys last year. This year, everyone's doing it. So how did that go from an occasional thing to an everyone thing this year?
So we had a meeting here with Dr. Lonzer, who's a neurosurgeon here on campus. And he's had a relationship with the NFL subcommittee on concussions. And we looked into it last year and allowed it to be optional for our players. And And then he shared with us the data coming out of the NFL last season on, those who had guardian caps going against each other. And it was hard to not recognize that there was definitely an improvement in that area based on the data that we received. So we made it mandatory for our team. We brought Dr. Lonzer in as a resource for any of our guys that had any questions regarding it. But the NFL, that was their policy here in the preseason, and we followed that. And they're going to carry it into the season, is what I've been told. So we're going to do the same thing. And if it can protect our players and it's safe, then we'll do that. We just wanted to see the data. The data has shown that we should do it, and so that's what we're doing. And the guys have embraced it. There was really no pushback from our players.
And just to clarify something from that answer, he said it was going to carry into the season. There was a follow-up question later, just making sure everyone understood. No, it is not going to be during games. It's just they're going to continue wearing them during practice, even into the season. So just during practice, not games. So, okay, there you go. So the Buckeyes recently just named 10 players as Iron Buckeyes for their work in the weight room, putting in the work, having a good attitude, being disciplined, all that kind of stuff. 3 of those 10 guys on the whole team were from the offensive line: Josh Fryer, Donovan Jackson, and Carson Hinsman. So, that feels like just sort of the latest sign that things are maybe going to be very different in the offensive line room this year than they were a year ago. Feels like we're hearing a lot of good things there. So how is Ryan Day feeling about that offensive line?
An offensive line is definitely a developmental position, and there's just so much that comes with it. And I think having both tackles, the left guard, Carson, Seth, these guys now have experience. They played, they know what it takes. So when you're in the off season, you know what you're up against in this. You know where you need to get yourself in terms of understanding scheme, but also just physically being able to wear teams down and playing your best in the fourth quarter. So there has been a different approach to that. Now, the one thing is we do have a little bit of a funky virus going on with that group right there. So they've been kind of in and out. We're hoping to flush that out by the end of the week because it's created a little bit of guys in and out. But other than that, they've had a great off season, and we're hoping that we can kind of get a rhythm with those guys here heading into next week.
Another spot where Ryan Day seems like he's feeling pretty good is about the safeties. You got Lathan Ransom back after missing the end of last season with an injury, added Caleb Downs. What does that mean? Those two guys, and let's start with Lathan Ransom. What does that mean to get those guys back for the defense this year?
Well, I just love being around Lathan. I just love him as a person, but I just love being around him. He goes so hard. He cares so much. There's no messing around. He means business, but he's also got a big heart, and he's a great teammate. And when he decided to come back, that was a big deal for our entire defense and our entire team. And so I love being around Lathan. He's a competitive guy. He plays really, really hard, and he's poised to have a great season. And then he and Caleb back there, and then you got Jordan at nickel, and then Denzel and IGB, and you feel Jermaine Matthews every day out there. Malik Harford showing some different things. I mean, there's a swagger and a strut with that defense right now. They love to compete. They love going against each other. They kind of go back and forth with the wideouts every day and the tight ends every day in practice. I mean, if the offensive line wants to go against them, they'll do that too. It's just the way they are. They love competing. And even just at the end of practice there, when we're doing our finishers, and they're barking because there's competition going on. So they're a gritty group, but that starts with the older guys, and Lathan's one of them.
Now a little more on the tight ends. Talked about Jelani Thurman earlier. Now let's hear about 2 of the guys who are ahead of him on the depth chart seemingly right now, G. Scott and Will Kazmarek. Where are those 2 guys right now in terms of pecking order and roles on the team this year?
Yeah, they're both going to play. It's 11 and 12, so we'll figure out where they fit into those. There's a lot that comes with playing tight end. Cade really 2 years ago probably played maybe too many snaps. I mean, that was a lot of snaps for him. We tried to help him out a little bit last year. So, there's going to be plenty of snaps to go around. It's going to be one of those deals where, does he deserve to play? If yes, we'll draw that line and roll those guys. But we're looking for them to be able to do multiple things. I don't know if, all the guys in that room have the same exact skill set. So we'll figure that out as we get closer to the first game. But ultimately, they all can play Y and they all can play H. I'm hoping that, Bennett can come along. I'm hoping Jelani can take that next step. We're seeing some good things out of Max. Pat Gerd is another guy who's been around the program for a while that, is a guy that we hope we can rely on as well in some of the packages that we have. So I know Coach Bailey's working hard to get those guys game ready.
One of the many, 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 many new things about college football this year is the addition of helmet communications, radios in the helmets, just like you kind of had in the NFL for years with the green dot and the quarterback and the Mike linebacker and all that kind of stuff. That has come into college this year. We've talked about that a few times, but the Buckeyes have now gotten to work with it a lot more in practice than they had the last time we talked to Ryan Day about it back at Big Ten Media Days. So how is that going to impact things on the field this fall?
I think it's going to be interesting to see because, up until 15 seconds, the defense coordinator can talk to the linebacker and the offensive coordinator can talk to the quarterback. So I'm sure there's going to be a point where both of those guys are going to be like, will you please shut up and let me play football? But I think it's going to be different. What we haven't experienced yet is, and I gotta figure this out going into next week, is like at 15 seconds when that thing shuts off, what that's going to be like. Because right now, we're still communicating through that. But it is different. It is different how we're doing it. And there's going to be multiple tempos that come with it. Again, at the end of the day, football's football. So whether we're signaling or communicating it in, we all have to be on the same page and play the game. But there is some nuance to it that we're working through.
At Big Ten Media Days, Ryan Day also talked about the need to find sort of the quality depth at wide receiver. Felt like they had a pretty good top three, and then they needed some other guys to step up. It sounds like now Ryan Day feels like Brandon Innis is stepping up to take on a bigger role this fall. So where does he fit with the receivers?
I've heard people talk about almost building a basketball team, different sizes. And when you look at, Carnell and Emeka and Jeremiah, and then you look at Brandon, I mean, they're all different sizes. And then Brandon's built low to the ground, but just super competitive. I mean, we say this all the time, like, can you see a guy play? Yeah, but can you feel a guy when he's out there? You feel 11 when he's out there. It's just the way he plays. And he's competing his tail off, and he's jawing back and forth with guy. He loves the competition, and I just like that part of his game. And he has toughness. I think when the ball's in his hand, he's a strong runner. He's played some quarterback in high school. He's played some running back in high school. I mean, he's done a lot. He can return. He's very versatile that way. So, if he continues to build, and he's not perfect. I mean, there's things he's got to get better at, but we're going to count on him to be a key contributor this year.
You heard him kind of make mention earlier, just sort of in passing, about a bug going around the offensive line room, that a lot of guys sick and missing practice here and there. Three prominent offensive linemen missed practice on Thursday. So how has that impacted things in practice?
It hasn't really affected us yet. It did a little bit today. We had a couple things show up, and so a couple guys on the offensive line had to double up, and I called them out after practice and gave them a shout out because that wasn't easy. It wasn't all perfect, but they were tough and gritty and really gutted it out. If this continues like this, then it is going to have an effect. If we can kind of flush this out here pretty soon, then I think it'll be just a bump in the road. So we'll see how this weekend shakes out.
Earlier mentioned the 10 guys named Iron Buckeyes, that 3 of them were offensive linemen. Well, how about this? 9 of the 10 guys named Iron Buckeyes this year were third-year players or later, so third, fourth, fifth-year players. Okay, yeah, sure, makes sense. Those are guys that are veterans. They know what to do. They're more physically developed. They're probably more focused, got their, the NFL potentially looming next season. So yeah, sure, totally makes sense. The 10th guy, 9 of the 10, third years or later. The 10th guy is true freshman. Go ahead and say it with me. Jeremiah Smith. Yes, he is sort of the answer to every question that a freshman is not normally the answer to this time of year. Just keeps showing up in places that freshmen don't ever show up. I think they basically said that this was the first freshman to ever be named an Iron Buckeye. I think that was more or less official. So, just remarkable once again. So what has Ryan Day seen from Jeremiah Smith that has made him accomplish all of these things? And what has he seen from Jeremiah Smith in battles going up against really, really top-level veteran corners every day in practice?
Yeah, he loves it. We were up in the training table the other day, and so that's why I came here, to get better. And I'm going against these guys and learning about myself. And I love his spirit. He's so competitive. For somebody who's as talented he is, first off, he's strong and he's powerful and he's big, but it's his work ethic to me that just jumps out. He's physically tough. I mean, physically, he'll get after you. But also, when he gets out there, very, very few MAs for a young player. He takes his game very, very seriously. He puts the work in off the field. And if he doesn't, make the play, he's hard on himself. And so, rare do you find somebody who's as talented he has, but has really good discipline and skill at that age. So we haven't played a game yet, but he's building a lot of respect amongst his teammates for sure.
This one was a great observation by Bill Landis. He pointed out, Will Howard just uses these little movements to buy time in the pocket. He doesn't have to like run around like Michael Vick or out sprint people. He just can dip and dodge and whatever else they said in that movie. No wrenches, but lots of defensive linemen coming at him, and he seems to just sort of be able to get around that to a certain degree. So how do you teach a skill like that to the younger guys?
I think about these things a lot. I remember when each guy is a little bit different, but let's take Justin, for example. That first spring, the minute he felt a rush, he would just start scrambling. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he was out of the pocket fast. And so, we just made a rule. You're not allowed to scramble. You have to stay in the pocket. You have to slide. Because the difference, like Tom Brady couldn't scramble really. And so what did he do? He still extended plays. How did he do that? He slid in the pocket. He found the soft spot. He could feel when a 3 technique was in his face, and then he would just slide to buy himself a little bit of time. When guys are more athletic and they can escape, they find themselves using that as a tool, which is fine. But we kept him in the pocket. And then with CJ in high school, you could see that his offensive line at times wasn't great, and so he had to stand in the pocket, and he would stand in the pocket, and that was something he even got in high school, and then he learned it more when he was here. And I think with young guys, especially with all the 7-on-7 that goes on, it's so unrealistic, And I think sometimes they train a little bit different at quarterback, where and it's hard because when you're working with a quarterback, you want to help them learn that you have to move in the pocket, but sometimes you move so much that you don't even need to move in the pocket. You were fine. You were protected. There's this rhythm that you have to feel. You can't look at the rush. You have to feel the rush, and you have to feel the soft spots. And like you said, it's very, very hard to, how can you replicate that? Do some guys innately feel it? Yes. But I think more than anything, it's a thing that you just need to get, the rush in front of them. And the more and more they do it, the more and more comfortable they'll be. The better protection you have, the quicker it'll come along. I've seen quarterbacks, when I was in the NFL and different places, where if they don't get any protection, they start seeing ghosts because, when you're in the pocket, you take one of the chops a few times. I remember it happened to Dwayne out here. I want to say it was the maybe Minnesota game, or maybe it was the Nebraska game. We missed a blitz coming off the edge, and he took one. He never saw it coming. He didn't set his feet the rest of the game. So there's a lot that comes with what you're asking, and I could probably talk about it for a few hours. But the bottom line is we want to train our guys to see down the field, feel the pocket, and really try to find ways to slide and find the soft spot in there. And then when it's time to extend and escape, then do that.
And finally, this is year 3 of the Jim Knowles defense. The year before Knowles came in, they were just an absolute dumpster fire in 2021, 2022. Certainly had some steps in the right direction, but gave up just a few too many big plays and big moments. 2023, another big step forward. Defense really was one of the nation's best. Now heading into 2024, boy, oh boy, they could be better than one of the nation's best this year. So how far has that defense really come in Jim Knowles' 3 years, and how much does that change things for Ryan Day as a head coach when he's looking at this team on the whole?
Well, I think 2 things. One, I'm able to sit in those meetings a little bit more, so I have a better idea what's going on, which when you're on the offensive side of the ball and you don't quite know, the answers to what the problems are, you can get a little panicky. And I think it's helped me to go in there and sit in there and ask questions. And Jim's been great, just, filling me in on some different things, but also just where we're at into year 3. These guys have been in that system now for 3 years, and a lot of them have played a lot of football. So, when you're speaking a language, it makes a big difference if you've been speaking the same language for 3 years. The mistakes that have been made, the issues with the coverage. And then when Jim's calling the defense, they start to understand why. We talk about this all the time. What do you have to do? How do you do it? But then why is he calling? He's calling that coverage for a reason. He's calling this blitz for a reason. And when guys can get that then they can start anticipating as opposed to reacting. So, yeah, it definitely is one of those things this year. Like, we have a good defense, so we need to understand that on offense. Like, they're not two separate entities. We're all one together. And I'm hoping this year that, having Chip here and me kind of being able to step away just a little bit, I'm able to do that better than I have maybe in the past.
We will be back at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Friday. Got interviews with wide receivers, got interviews with corners. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there. Got plenty more to talk about as well at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there, making you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Also, make sure you check us out at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We've had lots of coverage there all week long. A very, very busy week of coverage. We'll have more coming for you next week as well. Lots of stuff to talk about as the Buckeyes head into the home stretch for that season opening game against Akron in just 22 days. It's almost here. Might start wanting to plan out that tailgate, all that fun stuff. Almost there. We almost made it through the offseason. We can enjoy the rest of the offseason and then what should be a really fun and exciting fall in Columbus, Ohio with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.